watching Cable 2.
December 12th, 2017 Board of Education meeting. I don't usually open the meeting. This is my once a year opportunity because the board elects officers at this meeting to open and do the invocation and open the floor for nominations. So at this time, I ask you to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And if you would, join me in the invocation. Father God, in this season of hope, we ask your blessings upon our children, those who celebrate Hanukkah, those who celebrate Christmas, those who celebrate Kwanzaa, and those who celebrate in a variety of ways. We ask that you bless them all with hope. We ask that you give us a heart of service as we work this evening and each and every day to serve these children. Thank you. We ask for your blessings upon this meeting. I think we're all here. At this time, I would entertain a motion to elect a chair of the Winston-Salem Forsyth County Board of Education.
I would like to make a motion. We've had a wonderful chair this year, Dana Jones, and I would like to nominate Dana to lead us again next year on our board.
I second that.
So we have a motion and a second. All in favor? I believe that's unanimous. I'm delighted to hand the responsibility back to you, Chair Jones.
Thank you, Dr. Emery. Next, we'll have the election of our vice chair. Do I have a motion?
I would like to nominate Robert Barr, please.
Do I have a second?
You got Mr. Johnson.
Mr. Johnson, okay. All right, thank you, Mr. Johnson. All in favor? Vote for yourself, Robert. It passes unanimous. Thank you. Before we get to some other business, I would just like to say thank you to the board for your continued support and trust as your chair. I appreciate the friendship that we have developed through these years, the trust and relationships we have had. I know sometimes it's easy for us to meet, deliberate, and talk about problems or opportunities and things that are in front of us, or sometimes challenges, but it's good for us to just pause and say in the last 4 years with this board, Dr. Emery and her staff, there have been some great things that are taking place in Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools, and it's nice to just pause and kind of think about that. So thank you to my colleagues for all of your hard work every year. We have a few things to change on our agenda, I believe just one, and that would be in our, our action items for this evening. We need to remove item H, and that's the joint use agreement for 690 Trade Street. I don't believe we have any other changes to the agenda before us. If not, do I have a motion to approve with that change? Thank you, Mr. Singletary, and second, Ms. Taylor. All in favor? Motion carries. So next we have some very talented students to recognize for our 2017 holiday card winners.
Dr. Emery, Chairman Jones, and members of the Board of Education, and our honored guest, good evening. It is my great pleasure to introduce to you tonight our artists who were selected for this year's holiday cards. We will start with Miss Natalie Beatty. She's an 11th grader from Mount Tabor High School. Her art teacher is Miss Barbara Trin. Her principal, Ed Wise. And she was selected by Dana Caudle-Jones. Natalie, stay still right there. And Natalie's family, if you'll please stand, along with the teachers and principal, to be recognized, please. Sure. Next is Brianna Samonta. She's a 5th grader from Moore Elementary School. Her teacher is Teresa Wiles. Her principal is Adam DeVico, and she was selected by Robert Barr. And her family and friends, if you're here, please stand. Art teacher and principal to be recognized. Next is George Vincent Monterial, a 9th grader from R.J. Reynolds High School. His art teacher is Emily Beach. His principal is Leslie Alexander, and he was selected by Lori Goins Clark. And I do not think Vincent was able to be with us this evening, but I know his art teacher is here. If you'll please stand and be recognized. I think Emily's coming forward to receive his cards. Next is Lenora Blaylock, a 7th grader from Southeast Middle School. Her teacher is Diane Betzner-Tabor. Her principal is Stephanie Gentry, and she was selected by Lyda Calvert-Hayes. If her family, teachers, and principals would stand to be recognized. Next is Oge Azebo, a 4th grader from Brunson Elementary School. Cynthia Sanders is her art teacher, and Jeff Fallon is her principal, and she was selected by Marilyn Parker. If Oge's family, teacher, and principal would stand to be recognized. Next is Ava Altice. She's an 8th grader from Southeast Middle School. Diane Betzner-Tabor is her art teacher, and Stephanie Gentry is her principal. She was selected by Victor Johnson, and I don't think Ava is able to be with us this evening. So, Ms. Tabor, if you'd come on up and receive her cards. Next, we have Layla Gagoo, a 3rd grader from Clemens Elementary School. Her teacher is Fran Page. Her principal is Wendy Brewington, and she was selected by Elizabeth Motzinger. If Layla's family and teacher and principal would please stand and be recognized. Next is Danitza Cisneros, a 12th grader from Reagan High School. Her art teacher is Jennifer Willard, and her principal is Brad Royal. She was selected by David Singletary. If Donitz's family, teacher, and principal would please stand to be recognized. Next is Branny Nunez Olmedo. He is a 12th grader at Carver High School. His art teacher is Ken Suber, and his principal is Carol Montague Davis. He was selected by Deanna Taylor. If Branny's family would please stand, and teacher and principal to be recognized. And last but not least, Miss Hannah Kennedy, a 12th grader from West Forsyth High School. Her teacher is Nathan Newsom. Her principal is Charles McInich. She was selected by Dr. Beverly Emery, our superintendent. If Hannah's family would please stand, and her teacher and her principal to be recognized. Congratulations to all of our artists in this year's 2017 holiday card selections. Great job, you guys, as usual. I hope you took a look at their cards in the case. The original cards are out there. They always do such a wonderful job, and these are just as grand as they always are. Thank you so much. Sure. If you'll just turn around and shake their hands. Just go down the line. There you go. You got it. So it's very nice that we can take the time to celebrate the talents of our students. So again, thank you to our students for that. And what our board members were giving were cards. I think there were 25 cards, prints of their own cards so that they can have for keeps or to send to their family. So at this time, I'd like to recognize Dr. Kenneth Symington.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Emery. Before we do the student recognitions, I just wanted to take an opportunity to publicly acknowledge the work of Marty Stanley. A few months ago, Marty came in to help us with our athletic program, and Marty has done an outstanding job coming in on his reputation. He's very organized, very efficient, and a lot of time-sensitive things have to happen with athletics. And so we were very pleased that he was able to join us, and just wanted to say publicly thanks to Marty for all the work that he's done.
Good evening, Dr. Emery, Chairperson Jones, and board members and guests. It is my honor to be able to recognize some outstanding student athletes from our school system. In November at Beeson Park in Kernersville, at the North Carolina High School Athletic Association Cross Country State Championships, we were fortunate to have one team champion at the 3A level and 2 individual state champions, one at the 3A level and one at the 4A level. At this time, I'd like to introduce first the team champions from Mount Tabor High School. First, their coach, Patrick Cromwell. Team members, Cameron Ponder, Charles Pace, Michael Merck, William Scurry, James Velasquez, Max Thomas, and Hayden Cody. And if any parents or coaches or principals are here, if you please stand at this time. Give a big round of applause to these young men. Coach Cromwell is going to have a brief summary of their championship season. He promised.
Thank you, Mr. Stanley. Thank you, Chairman Caldwell Jones, Dr. Emery, and the board. It's worth noting, 6 years ago, you approved middle school cross country here. So this is your inaugural class that has come out of that program. Also, John Tatter from RJ Reynolds was part of that group. So we can't thank you enough in exposing these young men and women to a lifetime activity in sport. And I can't think of finer representatives of what athletics can do to enrich, challenge, and develop these young people. Our boys start off the year ranked by some experts in the top 30 in the country. We went downhill from there and faced lots of adversity and challenges along the way. Injury, sickness, and uncertainty crept in. We lost by 70 points in September to the eventual state runner-up, but we rose from that meet. These young men persisted, stayed the course, believed in each other, and their coach's plan and came together as brothers. On November 3rd, they went in all smiles, knowing the work was done. They raced for each other and the pride of being a Mount Tabor Spartan. They won the North Carolina High School Athletic Association 3A state championship by 38 points and had an average time of 16 minutes and 12 seconds for 5 kilometers. While we are on these numbers, these 7 young men put the student in student athlete that we all hope for. They have an average weighted GPA of 4.52. I also want to thank my assistant coaches, Chris Page and Bill Leffler, who is here tonight. And we have 3 seniors on the team. Cameron Ponder, he was your 3A individual state champion. He'll be headed to Furman University to compete in cross country and track next year. Charles Pace was an all-state performer this fall. He'll be headed to Appalachian State in the fall to compete in cross country and track. And Michael Merck, he is our leader in GPA with a 5.09. He'll be headed to Wake Forest to compete. Thank you all for your time.
And have Cameron stay up here. Okay, if I could have Cameron stay and the rest of you gentlemen can have a seat, thank you. You can shake the board members' hands. Of the over 400 high schools in the North Carolina High School Athletic Association, there's only one champion at the 3A level, and it's Cameron Ponder from Mount Tabor High School. Are your parents here? If you please stand again. Congratulations. Okay. And we were also very fortunate at the 4A level to have a state champion, and his name is John Tatter from R.J. Reynolds High School. John is coached by Mr. David Wainwright. Coach Wainwright, are you here? He's standing. He didn't want to speak, so that's okay. Also, his parents, are they here? Back in the back, congratulations. Just some additional information on John. This past weekend, he finished 4th in San Diego, California at the at the Foot Locker National Championships. According to what I've been told, this is the highest finish ever for a North Carolina runner at the Foot Locker Championships. And that blue shirt is not Mount Tabor. It is University of Michigan, where he'll be going next fall on a cross-country scholarship. Congratulations. Those young men did a lot of running. We are fortunate they don't have to go far for a state championship in Kernersville. Congratulations again to all these state champions. And in closing, in the next month, there should be a permanent replacement for the City County Athletic Director position. And I would like to thank Dr. Emery and Dr. Symington for allowing me to oversee the program while searching for this replacement. It's been my pleasure to serve once again for the school system. Thank you and happy holidays.
So Mr. Stanley, before you exit, we would like to shake your hand and also tell you thank you for your service to the school district.
Thank you so much. So that concludes our special recognitions for this evening, and we will move on to public comments on agenda items. We have one speaker signed up, Rhonda Mays.
Good evening, excuse me, I just elevated you, Chairwoman Jones, the board, and Dr. Emery. I am Rhonda Mays, a school social worker in this district, serving as full-time release president of Forsyth County Association of Educators. I wanted to acknowledge the Winston-Salem Foundation's commitment to the community, to our students, to our educators, as well as to public education. This commitment is made evident through the Project Impact Grant. That grant for that amount of money is going to do so much for our children here in Forsyth County. You know, from making certain our students have a foundation to build upon, an educational foundation, that all of our children who go through our pre-K program will have an opportunity to be able to build from there. You know, because with a good foundation, you can do a lot of things. This grant will allow our district to be able to meet and perhaps even surpass the goals that the district has already set. I'm just grateful that we have the Winston-Salem Foundation in our community. I'm grateful that they have the commitment that they have and the opportunities that it will allow our district here in the near future for our students, for our staff, as well as instructional support. We know that education is all of our business. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes our public comments on agenda items. We have 3 items for discussion. Speaking of project impact, I would like to recognize Victoria Fulton, and we will talk in depth about the project impact grants.
Thank you so much. I believe you just did a little bit of my job for me, so I appreciate that. Chairwoman Jones, members of the board, Dr. Emery, good evening. I've got 4 grants in front of you all, so I'm going to do my best to be really quick and concise and go through them. I'll pause after each of these if you have any questions. First up is Pathway to K, which I know you all are familiar with. Pathway to K is a transition to kindergarten summer program for children who registered for kindergarten in a Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools elementary school with little or no preschool experience. This is a 3-week summer program that's been offered for the past 2 summers through Project Impact Support, and which has demonstrated statistically significant gains both summers. And it's centered on the development of kindergarten readiness and social emotional skills, including familiarization with classroom routines, behaviors, and basic academic concepts. This summer, Pathway to K will expand its reach to students who have completed a preschool experience, but who still need additional support transitioning to kindergarten. This year's Pathway to K program will serve a minimum of 200 students in 20 classrooms at 7 sites. Based on preliminary information on the pre-K waitlist, we anticipate a minimum of 70 students with no preschool experience, along with a minimum of 130 students in need of supplemental transition support. Students will attend this year's program for 15 days, adding 2 additional days of instruction to last year's program. Do you all have any questions about Pathway to K? All right, we'll keep rolling. The next item is Pathway to 1, which I'm sure you all won't be surprised to hear. Like Pathway to K before it, is a summer transition program. Pathway to 1 meets students on the other side of kindergarten and is aimed at rising first graders. This 3-week program, which will be offered for the first time this summer, will focus on providing targeted academic and social emotional support for students making the transition from kindergarten to first grade, with a specific focus on combating summer learning loss, closing the achievement gap, and closely involving parents as partners. Pathway to 1 will be aimed at students who, at the conclusion of kindergarten, would benefit from additional summer support in order to enter first grade on track and ready to learn. Our target attendance for the program's first cohort will be 180 students. Those 180 students will be in 18 classrooms at 6 sites, all of which will coincide with the district's summer school program and summer feeding sites. As with Pathway to K, students will attend this program for 15 days. Do I have any questions on Pathway to 1? All right, I love it. Up next is CT3 at Petrie Elementary School. And this proposal funds a pilot of the Center for Transformative Teacher Trainings, or CT3's, No-Nonsense Nurturer, Real-Time Teacher Coaching, and School Culture Plan at Petrie Elementary School. CT3's programs have been implemented in over 200 schools across the country, including a partnership with all the Project Lift schools in Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools. So there are 3 components. The first, the No-Nonsense Nurturer program, provides teachers with the skills they need to take a no-nonsense, yet nurturing approach to classroom management that promotes the success of all students. Real-time teacher coaching provides immediate, non-disruptive coaching to teachers using wireless bug-in-the-ear technology that allows for instant feedback on classroom management and instructional strategies. And the school-wide culture plan, which is rooted in collaboration between the principal and CT3, aims to establish effective school-wide discipline plans, communication plans, and data systems, as well as reducing stress and frustration among teachers and staff in dealing with student behavior. Petrie is one of our district's priority elementary schools, and like a lot of our other high-need schools, Petrie faces 2 interrelated challenges: student behavior and high teacher turnover. These 3 initiatives target both of these needs by arming teachers with the skills they need to confidently manage their classrooms, systematically addressing student behavior challenges in a minimally disruptive way, and fostering an engaging and supportive classroom and school environment. Do you all have any questions about CT3?
If I can make a comment, you have approved, so Dr. Horton brought this to you before because she was anxious to get started and she had other funding options if this grant was not approved. So you have in fact already approved these contracts. I do want to make note that because you approved before we took it to the Project Impact Board, they really were supportive of trying something different and bold, and so there was huge support to financially give Petrie an opportunity to sort of be our pioneer in this work. So we appreciate your support way ahead of the grant funding.
Thank you.
I have one question for you. With the students that participated in Pathway to K this past summer, did you see a difference with those students compared to the students that did not participate in Pathway to K?
So those students are in kindergarten right now, and so we're sort of tracking them throughout the school year. I will say one really interesting thing that we observed between the first and the second year of Pathway to K is that our cohort that came in this year was actually lower in a number of the domains when they entered than our first cohort was, but they caught up to the first cohort, and in some cases even surpassed them in a few of the categories. So again, the five domains we measured: object counting, letter naming, book orientation, and two others that I can't remember off the top of my head. But we saw dramatic gains in all of those, and even slightly more dramatic this year. So we were excited to see that.
Sparker.
I have a question. I'm not sure whether this is for you, Victoria, or Dr. Emery, but if we see the program at Petrie be a really, really strong program, do we plan or will we plan to try to find funding or to implement that in some other schools that may have the same needs?
So I think that was the attractiveness to Project Impact, because their idea is that they provide funding for us to try some different and bold things, and then we see, does it work, does it not? And then, of course, sustainability comes back to us. So we're very hopeful that Dr. Horton and her team will see results here based on what has been seen around the country. But absolutely. I do want to say, because you're asking a great question, and it's been part of the dialogue with Heather, is I only think this model works if teachers are receptive and welcome it. So I don't think it's the kind of thing we could say, thou shalt do this. I think we could say, we want some other schools to join in and be a part of this. And I'm sure we'd have them, but I think teachers have to see the value in the coaching for it to really have maximum benefit.
Additional questions, Board of Victoria? Nope. Okay.
All right, I've got one more for you. And this is the Cook After-School Learning Program for pre-K through third grade, which is an academic after-school initiative at Cook Literacy Model School. Cook is seeking funding from other sources to support after-school learning opportunities for grades 4 and 5. Project Impact's really concerned with that pre-K through third grade span. So this after-school programming will have 4 main components: catch-up growth and academic learning opportunities, wellness and choice academic enrichment activities, positive behavior and social emotional learning support opportunities, and finally a parent involvement academy. This program aims to serve 15 students in each grade, pre-K through third, with a total enrollment of 75. Students will be targeted to attend based on their current and most recent performance on DIBELS and TRC, as well as their independent reading level. And student participation in the program will also be contingent upon a parent or guardian's agreement to attend parent academies. No fees will be charged to families participating in the program. 2 of Project Impact's key areas of investment are intensive intervention in lower performing schools and extended learning opportunities. This program will provide targeted extended day learning opportunities to students in one of the district's highest need schools. And as I mentioned, all of the students participating are in Project Impact's target grade levels. Paula also wanted me to share sort of a timeline with you all, that a committee will be selected to create an RFP for the after-school program in mid-December. That'll be made up of 4 to 5 central office staff and Cook staff. From mid-December to early January, that committee will work with the purchasing department to post the RFP per district guidelines. In mid-January, bids will be reviewed based on the criteria, and a vendor will be selected based on their fit, with the vendor starting to work with the school to recruit and begin the program from mid-January to early February, and that's a program that will run through the end of the school year in June. Any questions on the after-school program? Yes.
I just want to applaud you for having the Parent Involvement Academy. That's just wonderful. It really, really is. Could you kind of tell us how that works and give us a little information on that? Maybe how many parents you have that you hope to be involved and where you stand on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is something that actually came out of an initiative that Cook had this summer, also funded through Project Impact, which was their Camp Pride program, which was sort of an academic summer school program for rising first through third grade. They also had one for rising kindergartners called Kickoff to K, and parent involvement was sort of one of the critical pieces of that program. Parent workshops, parent engagement, getting parents in the door and providing sort of support and coaching. And Paula felt, or Dr. Wilkins at Cook felt really strongly about making that one of the 4 pillars of this program. And so every student who's enrolled in this after-school program will have a parent or guardian participating in the program. So that's 75, we hope, parents that'll be reached through the program in addition to the students.
And I might add, I think Cook had a really viable after-school program last year that was very helpful, and they lost that because the funding for that went. So I really applaud you guys for picking this back up, because that is something they really need, and it was a real loss to them because they were seeing some real gains with that. And so thank you very much for doing that.
Additional comments or questions for Victoria?
All right. Thank you all so much. And in case I don't see you, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and Happy New Year.
Thank you. And happy Hanukkah. Yes, that's right. Tonight.
That's the first night, yeah. Thank you.
Okay, so next we have our Finance Committee report. Mr. Barr.
Okay, the Finance Committee discussed budget amendment number 1 and transfer number 1, which includes amendments for some of our larger federal grants and for the purchase of activity buses. The amendment and transfer are on the agenda as an action item tonight. And also we discussed that next year we would appoint an AP pay study, and David Singletary and I volunteered to be a part of that. And also, let me take just a minute just to recognize our new CFO, Kim Slosher. Would you please stand? Welcome to the family. And I think those of us who served on that committee will just say after a year and a half of interviews, we think we've got the right person. And then thank you, Carrie Crutchfield and Frida Lashman, for just keeping the department together. So thanks a lot.
Thank you, Mr. Barr. Next, our Building and Grounds Committee report, Ms. Lyda Calvert-Hayes.
Okay, thank you. We do have several things on our buildings and grounds. I think you've heard us, if you've listened to us for a while, we've talked about the Walkertown ES replacement cooling tower. We will be voting on that tonight. We've also talked about the CMAR selection for our middle school on Robin Hood Road, which is exciting. We're really starting to move along on that, folks, and it's going to be our new school. I know Louisville is excited about it. All Forsyth County is excited about it. And so we'll be keeping you with great updates on what's going on our new middle school on Robin Hood Road. We also talked about approval of Mount Tabor HSGMP for stadium repairs, and we will be voting on that tonight also. We did something tonight that we haven't done before, and that was going over our core values. In doing our core values, we recognized one of our staff members, Mrs. Burgess, and she began working in child nutrition as a CPI temp in the reception role in 2014. Since then, she has worked really, really hard. She has used our core values to her advantage, and she never misses a beat and is eager to learn more about our business to support students and keep evaluating others in her career. We're grateful for her hard work and dedication and look forward to a long career together. I want to thank all of our staff members that work for Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools. We have so many that work so hard. We have so many teachers that give everything they have to our students. And we also have our staff members that work hard. I want to say thank you to each and every one of you. I also want to wish you a very, very Merry Christmas from our board and from our heart, let you know how much we appreciate you and how much we appreciate what you do for our Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Calvert-Hayes. That concludes our discussion items for this evening and takes us right into our action items. First up, we have consider approval of Project Impact Grant Contract for Pathway to K. Do I have a motion to approve? Ms. Taylor, do I have a second? Ms. Clark, any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries. Consider approval of Project Impact Contract Grant for Pathway to 1. Do I have a motion to approve? Ms. Calvert-Hayes, second. Ms. Taylor, any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries. Consider approval of Project Impact Grant Contract for CT3 at Petrie Elementary. Do I have a motion to approve? Ms. Clark, do I have a second? Ms. Calvert-Hayes, any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries. Consider approval of Project Impact Grant Contract for Cook Literacy Model School after-school program. I have a motion by Mr. Barr. Do I have a second? Ms. Parker, any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries. Before we move on to some of our other items, I just want to thank our community and the members of Project Impact, our business community, to put this together. Their great relationship that they have with Dr. Emery, and to really meet the needs of our students. We are thankful to have a community that cares this much about public education. And we also want to thank our Winston-Salem Foundation folks for kind of administering that money and those grants. But it's a great place to be in. So many other boards of education and superintendents would love to have those types of partners, and we are truly blessed here in Forsyth County, so we want to thank them for what they are doing. So huge investment, and we appreciate that. Next, we would like to consider approval of a Walkertown Elementary School replacement cooling tower. Do I have a motion to approve? Ms. Parker, do I have a second? Ms. Clark, any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries. Consider approval of the CMAR selection for the middle school on Robin Hood Road. Do I have a motion to approve? Ms. Clark, do I have a second? Mr. Johnson, any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries. Consider approval of the Mount Tabor High School GMP for stadium repairs. Do I have a motion by Ms. Calvert-Hayes? Do I have a second? Second, Mr. Johnson. Any discussion? Okay. All in favor? Motion carries. Consider approval of policy 3513, energy management conservation. Do I have a motion to approve? So moved. Mr. Singletary, do I have a second? Ms. Parker, any discussion or comments?
Yes, I would like to say we talked about this at great length, and I am disappointed that it's so watered down as to be virtually meaningless. And I hope that in the future, when our students put the kind of effort into trying to change this policy that Austin Smith put in, that the board would take that more into account. In particular, the world that we're leaving our children is one that is not going to be safe for them in the long term, and it concerns me mightily.
Thank you, Ms. Monsinger. Do I have other comments? If not, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries 8-1. 8-2, sorry. I'm sorry, Deanna, didn't see that. Okay, motion carries 7-2, thank you. Consider approval of policy 7415, pre-qualification of bidders on construction projects. Do I have a motion to approve? Mr. Singletary, do I have a second? Is that Mr. Johnson? Any discussion? Comments? No? Okay. All in favor? Motion carries. Next, consider approval of budget amendment and transfer number 1. Do I have a motion to approve? So I have a motion by Mr. Barr, a second by Mr. Singletary. Do we have any comments or questions? I have a comment that I'm confused just a little bit around one of the items in the, I guess in the transfer, and I guess I'm asking was it in the original budget for us to approve to use some travel tracker dollars to the purchase of 3 activity buses? So whoever can, I know that, I think it's, help me understand, I think it's, I'm being told that was in the budget, but it has to be transferred at a later date. Can someone help me understand what that looks like and a timeline with that? Because it's my understanding after a committee meeting today that those buses have already been purchased, and I'm trying to see, did we approve that as a board in the original budget, or are we approving that purchase now? So did we purchase before we approved, or how does that work?
And Chair, I think Mr. Crutchfield could
Whoever can help
answer
me.
that. Perhaps someone from transportation, but definitely Mr. Crutchfield.
The funds were collected in previous years, so the revenues were collected. As an accounting mechanism, they are considered deferred revenues as of June 30th. This is asking you to budget them as revenues for purchasing the activity buses, but the funds were collected with the intent to purchase activity buses, and that was, I think, fairly clearly laid out a couple of years ago in some budget meetings, that we were collecting travel tracker revenues to purchase activity buses.
Have we used those revenues before now to purchase activity buses?
This is the first time that we have budgeted them. We accumulated enough to where we could budget for 3 buses.
So my question is that, so they were revenues that came in. So to this board, when we adopted the budget, did we specifically say we were using those travel tracker dollars to purchase 3 activity buses?
Not when you adopted the budget resolution.
So we have already, to my understanding from committee meeting, ordered the buses. My question is, did we order buses without the action of the board for the buses? Or were they in the budget? Because we had a special called meeting about activity buses, and I don't want to just, Carrie, I'm not trying to pick on you. You drew the short straw and you came up to the microphone. I'm trying to understand, in a lot of conversation about activity buses, and I thought of a very direct question that there was never brought out that we were going to transfer 3 buses this year. I actually did not ask Carrie, but asked a staff member on the phone. So we can use travel tracker dollars starting next year, and you will put that in your budget. And I said, do you have that in your budget now? And I thought the answer to me was, no, we don't have that in the budget. And then I came in, and we talked about this in committee meeting, and saw listed in there that we have 3 that we're transferring, and then we were asked, have you already purchased the buses? And yes, we've already put the order in. I'm concerned that we've ordered buses without the board saying we want to use the funds that way. And I'm just trying to clarify, because I may be wrong, but I'm just confused.
And again, this would be the action approving the use of the funds this year to purchase the buses. The money, I think, was very clearly explained a few years ago that that's what we were collecting the money for.
But we wouldn't, but we hear a lot of information.
I
I'm
know.
not trying to split hairs.
I know.
It's very concerning that we really missed, I think, a boat that were the.
I think our operations folks had to place the order when they did in order to
And so if
make
we
sure.
don't approve the transfer, what happens? I mean, we've placed an order. What I'm kind of not getting
Right.
But I'm not getting a straight answer as to, yes, this was identified in the budget.
So I can't give you that answer either, but what I can say is I think we have to go back and backtrack our systems and find out, because what I think I'm hearing is that while the money was collected and
Right.
there, and at some point in time, I think we all knew when we went to Travel Tracker, the purpose of it was to create a refresh and recycle. The actual formal action of the board to move that is tonight, and that's behind the action of ordering the buses. So somewhere in our processes, something didn't go as planned.
So as earlier tonight, when I heard in a committee meeting, this was done in the budget, or it was.
I think Carrie wouldn't be recommending transferring it to use for this purpose now if we had the authority earlier in the budget to spend it that way. And if I'm wrong, correct me, Carrie, but I mean, I think when we make a decision to purchase, just like you did with activity buses, the transfer and the amendment create that. And I think if we're being fully transparent, we had an order go without you approving a formal amendment or transfer of the dollars.
Thank you. So I just, having the fact that we called a special called meeting to talk about activity buses, to talk about trying to get ahead of the curve of we needed to replace our fleet, and we looked at trying to do maybe 3 years of taking some money from fund balance, and then had an entire conversation around what would a plan look like to sustain this fleet, and that came from hopefully some budget next year of travel tracker dollars along with capital dollars to be able to do, I believe it was 4, based on current numbers that we had, that would be the hope. And through all of those conversations, even in that special called meeting, not talking about this particular year that we were then going to bring that just happened a couple of weeks ago. So I'm disappointed that I think we've lost some transparency. And that being said, I can't support the budget transfer. I mean, I think that's to me a conversation we may have had about buses 2 years ago. Is about we have conversations for years around a lot of things, and then plans change. But to me, that's not being transparent, and that's the role that we play as a board of how we use the funds. So. That's any other comments, board members, on that? So we have a motion by Mr. Bard. The second was by who? Mr. Singletary. Oh, I'm sorry, Lyda, did you have another comment?
Yes, I was appointed to the board, as some of you know. So I'm the newest board member, and this was news to me because, maybe I wasn't here when it came up, and it was my understanding that we had 22 buses. And then all at once tonight, there were 3 additional buses. So I cannot support this either.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor and a second. Those in favor of...
Madam Chairman.
I'm sorry, Mr. Secretary.
If I could make a real quick comment. And I certainly respect my fellow board members' positions in not being able to, at this point, support this particular motion. It is apparent to me, based on Mr. Crutchfield's comments, Dr. Emery's comments, and the information in front of us, that the budget that we originally signed did not include purchasing 3 activity buses out of travel tracker funds. And it was our understanding, and someone correct me if I'm wrong, that we would purchase our 22 buses this year, activity buses, using our,
Fund balance.
thank you, fund balance. I keep wanting to call it discretionary fund, I apologize, fund balance. And that it would be next year, as a plan was brought forward, that would allow us to develop a sustainability plan for replacing activity buses moving forward. That being said, I don't believe, I'm not happy with what happened. I'm really not happy with what happened. But I don't believe that any of us can argue with the need to replace those activity buses. So I would just encourage my fellow board members who don't feel they can support it at this moment to chalk this up to a learning experience, encouraging staff to adhere to transparency in the same manner that we work to adhere to transparency. And since we have brought this issue to light with discussion, I would encourage my fellow board members to consider supporting these additional 3 buses, knowing that it is for the good of our students and our athletic program. Thank you.
Ms. Taylor?
Carrie, one of the questions I asked you in committee was the 3 buses that are additions to what we've already agreed to order. These 3 buses was because we did not have enough on the road in general.
Correct.
So they had nothing to do with the 22 that we've ordered for the wear and tear. These 3 buses are specifically because we just don't have enough buses.
That's correct.
That's correct, okay. So, and we're currently using school buses. Yellow school buses.
When the demand exceeds our activity bus fleet, we're having to use yellow buses, which are more costly.
Okay.
Yes.
Again, I agree with my fellow board members that I am not pleased with not knowing of these 3 additional buses. But I can see, in a sense, that you did not bring up the 3 buses because they're not necessarily for the wear and tear of the buses, but just for the amount of buses that we need on the road. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. No question. No, I mean, that's, I just
And that
trying
was,
to process.
that was
myself.
never
Right,
discussed or brought up, that we needed these buses during the activity bus
And Madam Chairman,
conversation?
I think that we should also point out with with respect toward transparency, we have a fleet of approximately 110 activity buses. The 22 buses that we recommended purchasing are replacement buses. If we do purchase an additional 3 buses, that does not mean that our fleet will increase to 113 activity buses. We will
That's what I
still
was hearing.
Well, we're at
That's
this,
because this is for additional buses, not
So,
for replacement
okay, so-
buses. And my question originally,
see, our
Mr.
22
Secretary,
are-
was, did we have the authority to order these 3 buses if these 3 buses were not approved when we approved the budget?
okay.
And I think the answer to that was no, or I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I got an answer, but I'm thinking it's leaning toward no.
No, it's apparent that this was not part of the budget that was put before us.
So then that's why I can't support it, is
Yeah.
we're not following our own policy. Ms. Parker?
And I think where the discussion that we had in the special called meeting was that we do not want to hog tie another board to replacing a large number of buses at one time. That was the concern about doing another 25, because unfortunately, that's why we're here today, because of budget constraints and such, that we need to replace large numbers of buses at this time, and we do not want to see that happen again in the future for a future board. And so I think that is the concern and the heartburn that we have. It's not that we don't think we need the buses. It's not that we, don't want to have the buses. It's not 3 buses. The problem is that our discussion revolved around 22 buses, that we felt like that was a number that could be worked with in the future. And so I just would like the public to understand it's not that we don't want the school system to have 3 buses. It is the long-range plan and the future of this that was our concern during that special call meeting. I just wanted to make that clear to the public that we're not like ogres that don't want the activity buses on the road. It is a fact of the future. So.
Right, question. I don't know how, if we have the money, was it a line item in the budget that we approved?
No.
So.
And I think that's the other piece of this, right? So, to your point, Ms. Parker, I don't think anyone thinks that you don't think we need buses, whether they're replacement or new. The issue that we need to answer, and I don't think that we can say yes, is that while we knew there was revenue, in a budgeted process, there was not a budget line item that you approved prior to this action that would have given authority to place the order for those buses. That's not like us. It's not the way we want to do business. It's not following our policy. And that's what I'm hearing is the concern, not about the buses or how many or even replacement. I mean, yes, we want to be thoughtful about replacement, but right now the issue is that we've ordered something, and yes, we have the money to pay for it. It's not like the money's not there, but we haven't followed the process that we should have followed to do that.
Yeah,
now,
and
if I'm wrong tomorrow when we sort through this, then hallelujah, and I'll be the first to say, but right now, to try to give you an answer to your question, I do not think that the dollars were appropriately transferred to be able to order the buses that were ordered.
And that was, Dr. Reed, that was my point, that we all as a board thought that 22 buses would be what were the order that would be placed. And that was what I was trying to clarify, that was our, the whole crux of our discussion. It was the 22 buses. And if that was going to change, then that would have been the time for us as a board to have known that.
Yeah,
And
I understand
we had
that. I don't want anyone in the public or the community to think you aren't being supportive. You're being supportive and you're doing your due diligence. The issue here is on us. So I'm just trying to echo what you're saying and support you as a board.
And I need one additional point of clarification. The 22 buses that we approved are going to replace 22 of our existing activity buses. The 3 additional buses that are in question right now, will those 3 buses replace existing buses, or will they add 3 buses to the entire fleet, bringing us to 113 buses?
It was our plan to add 3 buses to the entire fleet.
Does that answer your question, Mr. Singletary?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So other comments or questions, board members? If not, we have a motion and we have a second. Those in favor of budget amendment number 1 and transfer number 1. It's time to vote. If you support it, if you are in favor of budget and transfer number 1, I'm calling for the vote. All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So we have 5 who are in favor, all that are opposed. Did everybody vote? Did Mr. Johnson vote? Okay. Mr. Johnson, are you in favor of that or no? Right, and now they're. Yes, but these are three buses we didn't know about as a board. Okay, so the motion carries 5 to 4.
6 to 3.
6 to 4, 6 to 3, sorry. Oh, I can't do math now, whoa. Okay, thank you, Mr. Johnson. We'll take you as in favor of the motion. Okay. Next, we have consider approval of a resolution regarding our school finance officer. Oh. Do I have a motion to approve? Ms. Motsinger, do I have a second? Ms. Calvert-Hayes. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. That concludes our action items for the evening. That moves us to the consent agenda items. We have 3 items on our consent agenda: approval of the meeting minutes for November 28th, 2017, approval of meeting minutes for special called meeting on December 4th, 2017, and approval of the general personnel report. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Thank you, Mr. Singletary. Second. Mr. Johnson, all in favor? Motion carries. We have no one signed up to speak, and so that concludes our business before us.
Thank you for joining us on Your School Channel, Cable 2.